My daddy uses Anchor to publish his podcast, and he loves it. Not only can he record, edit, and distribute on this platform, but he can make money at the same time, all for free. If you too would like to get started on your own podcast, go to the website anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Let's go!
Good evening and welcome to the very first episode of the Third Eye Podcast. The podcast is dedicated to open dialogue regarding the difficult topics that we all face in life. I am your host, Marcus Callahan, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Starting a podcast has been something that I've wanted to do for a few years now. I didn't really think anyone wanted to hear what I had to say, so I never took the leap. But recently I've had a spark, and I've decided to run with it. So thank you for joining me. Tonight we're going to discuss redemption and what that means in today's society versus what it meant back in biblical times. But furthermore, I have been on my own journey of redemption for the past couple of years now. So I want to go ahead and give a little bit of backstory on that and let you know where I'm coming from. All right, so my wife and I have known each other since we were 7 years old. We grew up together. We have had an off and on relationship since we were 8 years old. So there is a lot of history between us. We got married in the spring of 2014, and we moved to Delaware. We moved our family to Delaware in the fall of 2014. At the time, it was just me, her, and our 2 sons. And for that first part of living in Delaware from 2014, the end of 2014, all the way through 2015 to the beginning of 2016 was a very difficult time for our relationship. And it was my fault because I had a very, very loose relationship with employment. And it wasn't because I couldn't find employment. It was because I didn't want to be employed. I didn't want to work. I was so caught up in my feelings of not wanting to be in Delaware because I missed my hometown that I couldn't see how I was hurting my wife and our family. So 2016 came. My wife gave birth to our daughter in September of 2016. And pretty much after that is when things hit a boiling point. My wife and I did not speak to each other. I want to say it was probably 2 weeks after my daughter was born, all the way up until January of 2017. We didn't speak to each other unless it was about our kids. We didn't speak to each other. I was sleeping on the couch, still having a hard time finding work, and things were a mess. They truly were. So much so that my wife brought divorce papers home. And we had to seriously consider if we were supposed to be together. Luckily for me, my mother-in-law suggested we try couples counseling before we ended things completely. And we did. But we didn't go in the hopes that we could save our relationship. We went because we knew that regardless of if we were together or not, we still had to co-parent, and we wanted to be able to do that in an efficient manner and a civil manner. So that was the goal of couple counseling. And if it saved our relationship, then, that was a bonus. But when we started, it was never about saving the relationship. Little did I know that going to therapy would be the start of the journey for me. I learned a lot about myself while in therapy with my wife. Those first few sessions of therapy were such a gut punch to me uh, because the first time in my life I had to face my demons, and I had to come to terms with the fact that I was the problem. Me not working consistently was a huge problem. And not only was I not working consistently, but I wasn't pulling my weight around the house either. Um, it's shameful to even say this, but like no person who's working should have to come home to a dirty house and their spouse is at home and not cleaning, not cooking, not doing anything to help uh, unburden their partner. And that's where I was. That's where I was, you know, from 2014 to 2016. Really before that, when I was living in Vegas. Um, it was a buildup of this over time that led my wife to present me with divorce papers. And I'm to this day, I say it all the time. Therapy is one of the best things that I ever did because it forced me to look within myself and make a change for the better. And that really is where my journey of redemption started. And that is why I'm doing this episode, because I think redemption is such an important thing. And whether you are a piece of crap husband, or you are a parent who has made mistakes, or if you are a drug addict or an alcoholic or a criminal, I think redemption is the thing that keeps us going, knowing that we can essentially be saved. So yeah, therapy saved my marriage, and really it saved my life, and it put me on a path that led me right here. I learned never to give up and to always put forth effort, because even if you don't see the payoff immediately, eventually you will. And I am happy to say that since starting therapy, I have been continuously employed. I do my fair share around the house. I try to tend to my wife's needs as best I can. I try to live each day being the best husband and father that I can be. And some days I'm very successful, and other days I fail. And I fail more times than I succeed. But every day I wake up and I try. And I think that it's really all you can do. So redemption is something that's very personal to me, and it's something that I have been chasing for years now. And I just had a discussion with my wife a week ago about this very topic, and she let me know that in her eyes I have been redeemed, and it took a huge weight off my shoulders uh, to know that I have earned her trust back, and that she feels she can count on me. That's a huge thing for me, and that was one of the things that pushed me into finally starting this podcast. Was her belief in me, and I know there are a lot of people out there who need that kind of belief, who need that same push, who are out right now, who feel like they are not redeemable. And I know it's because I've been there. So where we're at in today's society weighs heavily on my mind, because there's so much going on in the world, so much crime and hatred and things that are so dark and scary. And I often wonder, can we as the human race be redeemed? Whether that is redemption through religion or redemption through other means, I'm not sure, but the question is always on my mind. And what would that redemption look like for us? There are a few stories in the Bible regarding redemption. One of the most famous ones being Noah and the ark. Um, God warned of a coming judgment, and it was going to be a worldwide punishment. Those who would repent of their sins and believe in Noah's warnings were welcome to board the ark before the floodwaters began. And after 120 years of preaching, the only people who stepped onto that ark were Noah and his family, even though there were room for many more people. Only 8 people were actually saved. Redemption was offered to all who were willing to repent and believe. However, few accepted the offer. Another story is Abraham and Isaac. God asked Abraham to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. Throughout the whole process of going to the mountain to sacrifice, Isaac was obedient and Abraham was hopeful. Abraham fully expected to sacrifice his child on the altar, but he was also confident in the fact that God could raise his child from the dead. What Abraham did not expect was that God had a completely different plan in mind. And moments before Abraham thrust a knife into his child, God provided a sacrificial ram to take the place of Isaac. God redeemed Isaac with this ram. It is an example of how God redeems us with the sacrifice of his son. Now, I've never been too religious. And if you are, it's perfectly fine. But I do believe that redemption plays a huge role in mankind, period. Whether you believe in the Bible or not. I think the events that have been playing out over time are all leading up to a moment of redemption for all of mankind. I think at the end of life, we all have to answer, for what we've done in this life. And I believe that redemption is available for everyone. For anyone who chooses to seek it, I believe it's available for you. And I don't want to get too preachy on this because, that's not my job. But seeing as how I have my own personal journey, I know there are many people who are going through their own journey of redemption. And if any of you need to talk, I'm always open to listen, whether on the podcast or off the podcast. But yeah, so that's where I stand with redemption. I think there's going to come a time where every person on this planet is going to have to answer for what they've done, and redemption will be offered to those who seek it. All right. So thank you very much for joining me this evening. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I just wanted to speak about my redemption and a little bit about what society's going through and how that parallels to what they went through biblically. So if you could all do me a favor and share this with your friends and family, if you could subscribe to my podcast on whatever service you are listening to this on, that would be most appreciated. And next week, I will be back with another episode, and that one will be a politically charged episode, which should be fun. So, thank you again, and I hope you all have a wonderful night. Thank you.